for today, Sunday, April 19th, 2026. And we have a really great town hall for you this week. We have a really inspiring young man who is running for Congress in Arizona, challenging an incumbent Democrat in Phoenix and the Phoenix area. And that is Kai Newkirk, and he'll be joining us. And Kai's just actually done amazing things on many planes over the recent years. And again, as we always say on these calls, we're going to make sure that we all are united to defeat the Republicans in the fall, but we recognize there's a considerable divides in the Democratic Party, and we support the progressive wing of the party. And while we don't have, we're not going to attack on any personal level the people we have ideological differences with inside the party. We are going to lay out why it is that we think the progressive agenda is the right path, not only for the country, but for the Democratic Party. And Kai is the person who's representing that position in what I think will become an increasingly high-profile race in the largest city in Arizona, in the Phoenix metropolitan area, one of the major metropolitan areas in the country these days. And so Kai's also, as we'll explain as we get closer to when we introduce Kai, he's done some amazing work, super important work for the progressive wing of the Democratic Party in other ways in recent months. So we'll talk about that as well. And then in the second hour, even though it is the weekend here in Los Angeles of the Los Angeles Times Book Festival, which is a big event at USC, really one of the great legends of American journalism of the past, really three-quarters of a century, Robert Scheer is going to join us. And he's somebody who I've really wanted to bring onto these town halls for a while because Bob is, again, a legend for many reasons. He, for a long time, was the left in the very popular NPR syndicated weekly talk show Left, Right, and Center. He represented the left for a few decades there. He, of course, wrote for the LA Times. He did some of the most famous interviews with U.S. presidents from the 1970s, 80s, and 90s. And yet he probably remains best known for being the editor of Ramparts magazine, the legendary magazine in the 1960s that did so much to expose the realities of the Vietnam War. Ran for Congress in 1966 in Berkeley, and then by 1968 he realized this guy named Ron Dellums would actually be a maybe better person to run for that seat, and that's the seat he had run for in '66. And he's just really an absolutely brilliant analyst of American culture. And he founded Truthdig, and I wrote for him at Truthdig for a long time. And then he now runs the ScheerPost. He's still very active. The ScheerPost and Truthdig were, of course, the primary outlets of radical cultural and political commentator Chris Hedges. And Bob has just, again, developed so many of the left progressive voices and provided them platforms in American journalism over the decades. And he'll be joining us. And both his commentary on the state of the media, I think, will be priceless, and also on what his thoughts are on the country, the democracy, the Democratic Party, and what progressives, always been a man of the left, and what progressives can do to change the country, change the world, all for the better. So that's going to come up in the second hour, and that should be pretty incredible. I'm very excited about that. And of course, in the first hour, we're going to have a little update from William Walter, hear what's up with him in Wisconsin with the Young Progressive Democrats of America, of course, from Donna Smith, and we're going to get our PDA to-dos from Mike Fox in a moment. And I don't really have a particular editorial framing for this week, except just to think about how we build progressive momentum in this primary season, be aware of the money we're going to again be going up against as the primaries unfold across the calendar in the year, and to maybe we're beginning as a progressive movement and as a country to be able to adjust to the chaos, to throw everything at the wall strategies of the Trump administration, because he's every time you look at the news about Iran, it seems like there is a ceasefire, there isn't a ceasefire, he's disrupting it, he's playing golf, all this nonsense. But I think we're starting to be able to sort of ride those waves a little bit more effectively because we're familiar with the chaos. So let's go to William Walter, then Mike Fox. I always hesitate to put Mike right at the top because people come in and we want to get as many people as possible to to hear the PDA to-dos when Mike's on. So let's go to William, then we'll go to Mike, then to Donna. And after Donna, we'll be welcoming Kai Newkirk, I believe. So, William, what's up? How does the world look to you after this past week?
Hey, Alan. Well, so I want to talk about something that we were able to talk about with Senator Ed Markey on the PDA call on Friday, I believe it was, and that's the weather that Wisconsin's been seeing this past week. It was very rough, to put it mildly. We had tornado warnings in my neck of the woods, about 20 minutes northwest of Wisconsin, 3 out of 4 consecutive days. We have incredible flooding across southeastern Wisconsin, entire communities that are essentially shut down now because they're under feet of water. Individuals stranded after the Brewers games because some of the major roadways in Milwaukee were completely and totally flooded. Now, this is the second once in a generation flooding event that we have had in the last 7 months. And the question, of course, that has popped up now all over my community, which is a very conservative community, is how do we prevent this? What's the next step forward? And surprisingly, the response I've gotten from quite a few people that I did not predict would take this route is some kind of legislative change in line with the Green New Deal. They are recognizing that the
Mm,
amount of money that we are having to spend every 12 to 18 months repairing all of this immense damage that global climate change is causing. If we had been proactive rather than reactive, invested in infrastructure that could help mitigate some of this damage before the damage becomes too severe. Story from one of my neighbors, actually, that was in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, talking about how they had to pay $100,000 to repair their basement after the mass flooding last August, only to have mass flooding again now, just as they finished it. And I happen to know that these individuals are conservative because I grew up with them and knocked on their door for my race. And it almost kind of feels like I hate to say it, but I told you so. We warned you that this was going to cause immense problems in the future, and we should probably do something about it now before it gets out of hand. And unfortunately, a lot of American voters they don't really care until it personally impacts them. But now that we are seeing these issues in our community here, a lot of people are kind of waking up to the importance of climate mitigation now, and I hope that we can continue working with officials like Senator Markey and AOC, and continue to advance policies like the Green New Deal that would be radically transformative in a good way for American society.
no, it's a great point, and yeah, I am seeing movement on that. It's very interesting, and of course I mean, we touched on this with Senator Markey as well. The absolute fiction that's been presented that the Green New Deal is a job killer. Um, there is a still relatively powerful union of chemical and electrical workers who work at gas refineries, who are some of the highest paid union workers in the country outside of baseball players and such. And so that, of course, union is resistant to it, but that's one union. We're talking about legions of jobs, and not jobs like at data centers where you do the jobs and they go away. There will be quite a continual need to re-up and transform and build upon a green and renewable energy system as it develops. There's a ton of build out that's necessary, and things like totally green high-speed rail as opposed to airplanes and all this stuff. The amount of and all of that, by the way, is part and part. AOC has been a huge advocate for high-speed rail, if people don't know. And one of the people who really understands that's completely in alignment with a necessary green energy program. And yes, Mila, I see your note, and none of this has anything to do with nuclear energy, which we have no use for. And by the way, Ed Markey was fantastic on all he said about nuclear weapons and nuclear energy too on that.
And Senator Markey also pointed out, Alan, it's a win-win as we're putting forward green energy proposals and creating these jobs for Americans all across the country. We're also reducing our reliance on foreign energy sources, and how it kind of plays back into the war in the Middle East right now. So many of these issues kind of play off of each other. We wouldn't have to be worried about the price of oil skyrocketing and Donald Trump's ridiculous ego trips all around the globe if we had green energy sources here at home that we could rely on to power our national energy infrastructure.
Fantastically stated, Mr. Walter, and have a great week. And of course, maybe you'll be around when we go to Q&A with Kai if you want to ask Kai a question. And for people who are putting their hands up the first time, we'll go to audience questions. Will probably be for questions for candidate Kai Newkirk in about 20, 25 minutes. Okay, Mike Fox, what are our PDA's to-dos? And Donna Smith is on deck behind you. What are our PDA to-dos for this week, Mike Fox?
All right, my apologies, multitasking there. Can you hear me?
We can indeed.
Hot dog. All right. First and foremost, gang, as always, I need more light. Uh, Video is always a problem for me. Anyway, first and foremost, as always, what do we do on this call every week? We revel in the fact that we're surrounded by people who get it. Each and every week, 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific. We are here. We hope you will be back because, number one, this is healthcare, gang. It just is. It makes me healthier that you are here. I want to thank you for that. Take a brief moment just to suck in the fact that we're all here in solidarity with each other. And James, we aren't taking questions yet, brother. You'll hear when we're taking questions. Thank you all, everybody. Reason why we do that is the hands are just a distraction while things are going on. Let's stay focused, okay? And so, to do number one, revel. To do number two, focus. To do number three, time and treasure, okay? From a time standpoint, we are looking to bump up our phone team in a big way today. We were in the game in a big way with Analilia Mejia this past Thursday. Big win in the New Jersey 11, gang. There's no question that, yeah, it was a kind of safe district. The point in that win is, number one, the margin. And number two, no question that seat got pulled to the left. All right. And that was a 101 on what it is we got to be able to do. If you got a safe district out there, we got to be putting a solid progressive in there, right? Might we be able to pull in a solid progressive in a more competitive area? Yeah, if we got a great candidate, they work hard, we work hard. Yeah, it's a possibility. But the low-hanging fruit is you got yourself a solid Democratic district, then it's got to get pulled to the left. And that was done in a huge way on Thursday. Anybody on this call who played a role in that, crow some in the chat, all right? Solidarity with you. Thank you for helping on that. All right, so you too can be a member of our awesome phone team. We work 7 days a week, 10 a.m. to midnight Eastern. We're the only national organization in the country that does that. Why? Because they're crazy? No, because it's that important, candidly. So pile on, gang. And if you're a phone banker, type in the chat the fact that you are. Toss a little inspiration in there for folks and see if we can't get 20, count them, 20 new phone bankers today during this event here, okay? Now, number two, that's the time element. Now, number two, the treasure element. We readily recognize that we probably don't have billionaires hanging out on this call. If there's a billionaire on this call, that's an awful damn special billionaire, candidly. And if you are, shout out. But in any event, the point being, the way we keep the lights on here, while the vast majority of the work is done by volunteers in our organization, and we take great pride in that. It's just right, candidly. It's individuals taking their civic responsibility seriously. And I'm very proud of that fact. However, we got to keep the lights on. And the best way to keep the lights on is becoming a sustainer, a monthly donor. Make it $5, $10, 20, more if you can. But bottom line, our primary goal here is solidarity, right? And solidarity means everybody on this call, if you can throw in $1, beautiful. That would be the perfect world, would be if everybody on this call did $1, right? It's just a solidarity thing. But our goal for sustainers today is 10. 10 new sustainers. We have hundreds of people in this room. We ought to be able to do that. So let's make that happen. The link is in the links, plural, are in the chat. If you don't see the links, go to pdamerica.org, hit donate, hit volunteer, okay? We'll be back at the top of the hour to see where we're at on our goals, and then we wrap the recording on the back end of this after all the guests have left. Then we have family time, and that's where we really dive in and take a deep dive on, okay, where are we at on our goals? Let's make sure that we nail them, okay? Thanks so much. See you in a bit. Back to you, Alan.
Thank you so much. And I am always honored to introduce at the top of these town halls the chair of the Progressive Democrats of America National Advisory Board, Donna Smith. What's on your mind this week, Donna Smith?
Oh, Alan, there's so much always there, right? And sometimes you just have to turn off some of the noise, right?
Yeah.
It's very difficult. And thank you, Alan, for soldiering through what I know is a really hard time for you.
Thank
after
you.
losing your mom. And we really appreciate that you're working this hard. It really matters. I wanted to share with everybody, many of you know I'm working on a project for the Tim Carpenter Institute on telling the Tim Carpenter organizing story. And one of the things that became abundantly clear to me was that, and this ties into today's call and building hope for all of us, that people loved him in so many different ways and were frustrated with him in so many different ways at so many points of entry. But when I spoke to his widow, Barbara, I thought that it almost took me in a time capsule where she talked about Tim sitting in the glow of his computer screen on a Sunday night, doing our calls, and some of you will well remember, some were not with us yet. Sometimes we had 10 people on the call, sometimes we had 15 people on the call, sometimes not that many. And Barbara said that he would write out the people's names and where they were from so that when we came our time to speak, he would remember. Things were not as simple. Zoom was not there. You're thinking about 2005, 2006, 2007. Technology was catching up. I'm not sure how many people had iPhones at that point. I mean, things were very different. And PDA was very small, but Tim never organized like we were small. Ever. Look at that, Healthcare Net Warfare stickers. I love that. Yay, Alan. Anyway, here we are. Fast forward, folks, 22 years to this day in 2026. How many candidates have been elected around this country? How many candidates have we supported? How many campaigns have we pulled to the left? How much change have we instituted in this country? All of us together. But look at the numbers, even today, 250, I'm seeing some on my screen. Wow. I can't imagine what Tim would have thought about that. I mean, he would have been pushing us harder, saying, well, you ought to have 500 or something like that. But right, Dan, he sure would have. But one of the great joys of organizing with PDA, and I think you'll learn this early on, we always punch above our weight, big time. And that's because of all of you, because you believe you can, and you still believe we will. And I know we will. It's a really hard time for so many people, really, really hard. I think maybe a little bit more so if you're older, because we feel like we're running out of time to hand it off in a meaningful way to our kids and grandkids. So today, and I know we're going to have others introduce him, but I want to say just a little bit about what Tim would have thought about Kai Newkirk. And I've known Kai for a long, long time. And, since the moment I knew him, he treated me like a whole human being. Tim did that, Kai. Tim knew how to do that. To treat people like they were whole, even where we were broken. And I think meeting you and meeting William and meeting Alan and meeting the people who are pulling PDA forward gives me so damn much hope. You've said your campaign is one running on love, and I believe that. And I believe the world's ready for that. So anyway, with that, I am in my project. What I did is, some of you are going to be very amused because I cannot interview everybody who loved Tim. That also became very apparent. I have emails written by all of you that you wouldn't believe. You're going to believe them when you see yourself quoted in them, because I have a lot of them from a long time ago, and they're a lot of fun. And Mike Fox, we wouldn't exist without you, and that's very clear. But, forget that I once said, who is that little man running around wanting to get on the phone? Anyway, thank you very much, and I will hand it off to Alan, who will hand it off.
No, so you get access to, it's like it's no joke, of course, this obsession in the society, and as there should be, of reviewing the old emails of a certain person that we're learning about the power structures of evil in our society, and you get to see the emails of angels.
Yeah, I honestly, and I think most of you would be very, very proud to see. Actually, I'm just teasing you, because I think most of you would be very proud to look at the work you've taken on over these years. Wow, team. Bravo to all of you. Bravo. And those of you carrying us forward, thank you.
I don't know if you were on the call with Senator Markey on Friday, but there was a not short set of exchanges about Tim and his great appreciation for Tim Carpenter from Senator Markey. Yeah, so we can have that video clip be part of what you can incorporate as well. Look, thank you so much, Donna. And I of course want to reiterate what Donna said about Kai, who's going to be introduced formally by Dan O'Neill from Arizona PDA in a second, and of course our national chapters coordinator. But I'm just at the top, because so much can be said about Kai. And since I've known Kai, some of the initiatives he's taken up, sometimes almost singularly motivating people across the country to do the right thing and to take action in the best traditions of Martin Luther King Jr. and nonviolent civil disobedience, to fight for what's right in front of the seats of power in the country, and in, of course, Arizona as well.
And I met in Occupy, Alan.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And but I also don't want people to lose sight of one thing he's done more recently, certainly in coordination with PDA, but really of his own initiative. And just so people understand this, he right now is a real contemporary hero for the progressive left across the country. Kai took initiative to drive the Arizona Progressive Caucus and then the entirety of the Arizona Democratic Party to adopt a resolution calling for dark money to get out of our primaries. Our primary season right now in 2026 is being polluted by dark money like never before. It was terrible in the last cycle. And in 2022, after what they did to Nina Turner in the special election in 2021, it was worse than it ever was before. Got much worse in 24, and now it is just lapping the amount. So avalanche of money that's going against progressives all over the country and people who take ethical and moral positions on issue after issue. And Kai got that through Arizona. After that happened, Senator Bernie Sanders heralded the work that was done, mentioned it on the Senate floor. North Carolina, again, in coordination with PDA North Carolina, was the second state to follow. And I was at the DNC last week, as I reported at last week's meeting. And what Kai has started, they can't get out from under. Yes, they're not voting for things the right way. Yes, they're throwing things to committee. But as of right now, things do pass through the Resolutions Committee and the general body of the DNC, condemning big money in the primaries and basically calling for its elimination in not quite as strong a way as Kai would have wanted to see them express it, or ourselves. But it's happening, and it's because of this gentleman's initiative. So I just want everybody to have that, to understand who we are heralding here as a candidate, certainly somebody we need in the U.S. House of Representatives. Dan O'Neill, take it away.
Thank you. Alan, can you hear me okay?
We all can.
Oh, great. Hey, hi, everybody. Thank you all for being here. Donna, thank you. Donna, you brought up an important point here. Uh, if if we asked Tim Carpenter, what do they think about Kai Newkirk? He would say he gets inside outside. He understands inside outside. And once you wrap your head around the strategy inside outside, can't stop us. We're going to win this. And Kai understands that probably more than a lot of people out there. I'm so happy to be able to introduce my friend Kai Newkirk. I've known him for about 10 years or longer, and we've been wrapped around so many different campaigns. Uh, he's the founder of the organization For All. He's a longtime community organizer in California and in DC and in the Midwest and so many other places. Um, he was the co-founder of Democracy Spring, organization that, like Donna said, led protests and demonstrations around Occupy. Kai Newkirk, his wife, Erica Andiola, Our Revolution, PDA, we've been tied to the hip for a long, long time and in a lot of battles. Kai is presently the Arizona Democratic Party Progressive Council co-chair of the Progressive Council. And as many of you might know, the Progressive Council in Arizona is the largest caucus and most influential caucus in the Arizona Democratic Party. The moderates stop and look at us. They do, and what we're doing. Kai, as Alan pointed out, helped lead the money out of our primaries campaign, and that campaign is still going full blast. But Kai stepped back a little bit and said, I think I'm going to do something very interesting. And he is now running for Congress to unseat Greg Stanton in CD4 in our primary on July 21st. And so with that said, I'm going to bring Kai on. And Kai, my first couple of questions are, why Greg Stanton and why now? Kai Newkirk, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dan. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Alan. Your introductions really touched my heart. I'm grateful to be with y'all. It's an honor. I feel like PDA, is family for me. For some, like Dan, some of the people I've been closest with all the years that I've lived in Arizona, and others that I feel a deep kinship with and been through a lot of experiences in the movement with going back many years. And I'm just always grateful. I love to toot PDA's horn. I feel like definitely punch above y'all's weight, our weight, and don't get enough credit. And I always like to say that PDA was the first organization, to my knowledge, that really bet big on Bernie Sanders' run in 2015 and 2016 and believed in it and said, we don't give a damn what people say about what's most likely to happen and what's the safe move, and we got this access and we got that, which a lot of organizations that I respect and unions that I was part of, they made a great historic error and said, no, we got to stick with Clinton. But no, PDA saw the potential and was willing to do what was right and when it was difficult and go all in with Bernie. And in my view, even though we didn't win, it changed the course of history and unleashed so much. And y'all deserve credit for that. And it's beautiful. And I have to say a word on Tim Carpenter. I got to work with Tim on some stuff. The first thing I did with PDA in a big way was the mobilization for healthcare for all in 2009, 2010, when we were pushing back on the insurance companies and trying to win the biggest step towards universal public health care that we could. We believed in Medicare for all. We knew we weren't going to win that, but we had to push to do as much as possible. And Tim was part of that, and we worked together. And I remember, I think he told me that he'd been arrested like 49 times, I think is the number that sticks in my mind, in nonviolent civil disobedience. And I think that Tim's one of the few people I know or have met that told me, a number that was what was more than my number currently, which is, somewhere over 25 or maybe over 30. I thought 49 times, right on, brother. That's some outside stuff, as Dan was saying, but he was very much on the inside too, building power within the party. And I always remember he signed his emails most often saying onward, onward. And I think of that sometimes. He just had this irrepressible hope and determination and energy that kept on driving forward. We see some of that in Brother Mike Fox now, for sure, that energy. And so I'm just thankful to Tim for helping to start this organization and building, and everybody who's built on it. It's an honor to have been inspired and encouraged by him, and to try to carry that forward in this movement. Just to say really briefly on myself, born and raised in West Virginia, son of a child care worker and a carpenter, divorced when I was young. I've lived in different places around the country. I became involved as an organizer in high school, more in the environmental movement, and then in college, in what we called the global justice movement, and then the anti-war movement after 9/11. And I saw quickly that this power in this tradition of nonviolent social movements, sort of organizing, it gave me hope that we could make a world that was the kind of world that my parents had wanted to live in, a world, and that this was a way we could show up for our loved ones and really change things and confront injustice and try to create a world that reflects in some way the goodness and the love that I think are the deepest nature of humankind. And so I've devoted my life to that path, leading violent struggles for democracy, for peace, for human rights, for justice for all people. Lots of different campaigns with PDA. Not just the Mobilization for Healthcare for All was part of Democracy Spring. I think it was 10 years ago today we finished up one of the largest civil disobedience actions in the 21st century in our country. Certainly 1,300 arrests at the U.S. Capitol, pushing to get big money out of politics and win voting rights. PDA was a part of that. The No Dream, No Deal, or Our Dream fight in 2017, right, when Trump tried to repeal DACA, we were part of a campaign that ultimately pushed the Democrats to briefly shut down the government to try to protect dreamers, and I think was part of the wins in the courts by which we did preserve much of the benefits of DACA, and much more since then. And in terms of the People's Primary and People's Pledge stuff that Alan talked about, we got the resolution through in Arizona and North Carolina, calling to get big money super PACs out of our primary elections and creating a process to try to do policy around that. We're not going to get the policy passed in Arizona. We've run into more resistance than we expected from our chair and others. And I don't think North Carolina is either. But as Alan said, it helped move things forward at the DNC level, helped plant seeds elsewhere. And I'm feeling confident about Sister Laura Lucero, who's on here with us, and our New Mexico PDA folks and the progressives there. I think I have a good chance to pass a policy, first in the country, to go into effect next year. And we're going to keep building on that. They're never going to stop us. And now we're seeing candidates around the country who are saying, we're not going to wait on our party to put in policies to do this. We're going to take action ourselves, and we're going to take this tool of the People's Pledge and challenge our opponents to join us. And I'm certainly going to do that with Greg Stanton in the days to come. And so making this decision to run, very difficult. It's a difficult time in my family and my personal life. My father's fight against cancer and what we're dealing with here at home. It's not the kind of life I would like to live, to be honest, which I would rather have more people in Congress and places like that who weren't doing it because they enjoyed, prestige or anything like that. To me, it's a sacrifice. It's about being of service. I don't give a damn about my or anyone else's political career or prestige, power, access, any of that. It's about a way to be of service and to sacrifice for the benefit of all people in our country and around the world and all of life. And I think, to me, conventional politics, I feel disgust for it primarily. But I want to try to run to bring this nonviolent movement tradition, exemplified by Dr. King and Dolores Huerta, people like Tim Carpenter, that said, even if we have to risk our lives, if we put our bodies on the line, if we have to go to jail, and if we have to get beaten, and we go out on strike, that we're going to do what's right to show up to really make this ethic of loving our neighbors as ourselves real. We're going to do that no matter what, because that's how the world is moved from the grinding injustice and suffering that has characterized so much of human history towards what Dr. King called a beloved community. So I've dedicated my life to that. And I'm running for Congress now to try to bring that same spirit, that same struggle from the streets and the streets into the halls of power and see if we can really shake things up. In my view, the current political and economic status quo in our country is deeply corrupt. We got billionaires with more wealth than entire nations or many groups of nations, while we got hundreds of thousands of Americans sleeping on the streets, and the basic expenses of life are harder and harder for most of us to afford. And that system is sustained by this vicious cycle of billionaires, the billionaire class corporations, the oligarchs, spending unlimited money in our elections and trying to get people into office that are going to serve them, creating policies that rig the economy towards them to get even more wealth, and then putting that wealth back into our elections, and in many different ways, creating this a system in which those that are governing and making these political and economic decisions are not doing so in accountability to everyday people and to what's right. They're doing so to serve those with the most wealth and to continue their access and their prestige and their position in relation to that. To me, that's deeply wrong. We need a political revolution, as Bernie said. We need to flip the tables of this corrupt status quo, as James Tallarico said. And that's what I'm running to do. And so much more to say about that on all the different fronts. But just to get back to Dan's question.
No, I was going to
Stan,
ask, could you tell us a little bit about your district and what is the team doing? How are you guys? You've been at it now for a couple of weeks. What's going on? Yeah.
So on the Stanton piece, in my view, we're in a time of extreme emergency for our nation and our world. And we need leaders that see that and are willing to fight and do whatever it takes to defeat Trump's authoritarianism and fascism, to shift from oligarchy to real democracy, to confront these crises. And Stanton has proven that he's not going to do that, in my view. He's a corporate Democrat, evidenced by taking a lot of corporate PAC money. AIPAC is his top contributor. He's resisted any moves towards accountability for the extremist Israeli government, despite war crimes and genocide in Gaza. He voted for the Laken Riley Act that began the erosion of due process in our country and gave a green light to Trump and his authoritarian mass deportation campaign. He voted against impeaching Trump last December, one of a very small number of Democrats who did that. Didn't come out to any of the mass protests pushing back against Trump's drive to seize power until June, the first No Kings of last year, just came out to attend. On so many different fronts. He doesn't support things like Medicare for all that I've been fighting for years. So in my view, like I've said, if he wins the primary, I'll back him. I would support an alley cat with a D on its collar to stop Trump from getting a Republican majority. But we can do better, and he needs to be held accountable. So I decided to launch just on March 11th, I think it was, just over a month ago. Late because of what's been going on in my family and trying to grapple with that. And my dad told me the night before he had a 12-hour surgery to deal with the cancer that he thought, if I believed this was the right thing, I should do it. And so with this, after conversations with many people, I launched, and we only had 13 days to get all the signatures we needed to qualify for the ballot. There was good people that said they didn't think we could do it because it was such a short time frame, but so many people came together as volunteers that we crushed it. We turned in 2,250 signatures, needing 1,374 within those 13 days. Shocked a lot of people, got on the ballot. We had the largest group in the local Easter parade of any candidate or local party organization a couple weeks ago. Great groups of people out knocking on doors this morning and yesterday, building the ranks of our support nationwide and in the state. State legislators endorsing PDA is the first national organization. I guess Track APAC, much thanks to them, was first, but with a longer track record and bigger organizing capacity. we expect to build a lot on this support from PDA, which I'm super grateful for. And this district is Cook Political Report rates it as a solid Democratic district. It's D+4. Stanton won by 7 points last time, with 2 points actually going to a Green Party member. I think that was a tough year for Democrats in 2024, but I think this is going to be a great year. Every indication is that we just had 8 million plus people in the street. We're getting like 5.5, 6 points lead in the generic congressional ballot, right? We're crushing it in these special elections. So to me, there's no doubt a Democrat is going to win this seat. It's just a question of, are they going to be a Democrat who actually fights for our values and that serves the people and the working class more than corporations, which is what I'm fighting to do. I want to guarantee health care, child care, education to our people. I want to raise the minimum national minimum wage to a living wage, at least $17 an hour, push for Medicare for all, ban corporations and billionaires from spending in our political elections. We have to reform the Supreme Court to get that done. We should do it. And I think we need to end ICE as an agency to stop its reign of terror once and for all. And I support ending military aid to Israel and sanctions in order to stop the genocide, to end Israeli apartheid and occupation, and secure Palestinian freedom and human rights for everyone around the world. I think we need to build a new foreign policy that's rooted in collective security, human rights, and international law. Otherwise, the project of building a just and peaceful world order and democracy is going to fail. So much to say, more to say on all those issues and fronts, but I want to give you a chance, Dan, to continue the interview.
Alan, you go ahead. You got a question? Okay.
Well, yeah, I got, I suppose, a little bit of an aside, but I think it just speaks to what a great background Kai has. I had brunch today with a mutual friend of ours, Alex Rivera, who gives his best, the filmmaker, and you and he are both graduates of Hampshire College, and I'm sure you heard the news about Hampshire this week, Kai. Is that correct?
True.
Yeah, my daughter was an early decision applicant who was accepted at Hampshire and committed to it without applying to any other schools, and we were so over the moon. We are so crushed as of Tuesday. And but for people who don't know, Hampshire is probably one of the 2 or 3 leading practitioners of really progressive education that was very much resistant to the trends in American education that make higher education basically, the pressure is you don't really want to edify and gain wisdom, edify your soul, expand as a person, but you need to focus on making money in the marketplace and contemporary higher education. And Hampshire was a rejoinder to that. And unfortunately, the board decided that the fiscal issues facing the institution were too great as of Tuesday. So we're heartbroken. I'll talk to you about that going forward, Kai, among many other things as we go forward. And a lot of love to you for what you're going through with your family, too. A number of us here have had that experience recently as well, and our heart goes out to you. But most of all, Kai, just as you know, I absolutely love the idea that you would enter Congress and foreground the sort of like the Thoreau and King and Gandhian traditions that you come out of, and to right after Donald Trump was reelected, I scrambled and brought Kent Wong onto this town hall. Kent Wong then organized these trainings for nonviolent civil disobedience in Southern California and in Arizona. And unfortunately, then Kent died. And he was a student of James Lawson. And I really thought that, with Trump being elected, we needed the best angels of our nature to step forward. And that meant foregrounding, the beautiful social vision and not, the courage that is inherent in it too, of the nonviolent civil disobedience tradition. And I also just love what you said about foreign policy and the necessity of recasting our foreign policy. And maybe could you speak a little bit about your thoughts on how the sort of sadism that we see with ICE and is so much the texture of the Trump administration needs this kind of rejoinder from the best traditions of America in terms of nonviolent civil disobedience, and not just the promise of a return to the previous status quo. Why it's so important that this kind of a positive vision rooted in love and deep love is important for American society at this hour.
Amen. First of all, rest in peace and many thanks to Kent Wong and also to Reverend Lawson. I was a student of his and had the honor to be part of the first two James Lawson Institute events that were amazing, and to work with him some when I was in the labor movement in Los Angeles as well. And just super, super grateful to him and everyone who helps to carry that forward. To me, it's at the core of what I've been, trying to do for a long time in my life. And I think there's just something so profound to me about this tradition that can go in and face the most ugly injustices and go and directly engage the deepest darkness, like the terror of Jim Crow in the South, and say we are going to meet this right with the most fierce resistance, and say we're even willing to risk our lives or to die to confront this, to do everything to make it impossible for this injustice to continue, right? But we're going to do so in a way that refuses to join with our opponents in a mutual pact of hatred, and we're going to refuse to give up on the dignity, the humanity that's present even in them, and the vision of reconciliation, right? And we have this in the left. We say Medicare for all, not Medicare for all except for the fascists, right? Because even if you have horrible politics, right? If you've got cancer, I want you to get taken care of, right? And we commit to hold on to that vision even in the face of that darkness. And so they did that in the Birmingham campaign, right? And they shone that radical light of love and shut the city down, created this tremendous crisis, right? But always holding out this potential for saying, look, we're not going to destroy all these people, right? Like, I've got people who support Trump in my family. I'm not going to destroy those people. I'm not going to seek to do that, right? We've got to say, you have a place in the society that we're trying to build, a just society. It's better for you too. And we're gonna resist you in every way we can against the ugliness and hold you accountable. Trump should be impeached. He should be convicted, disqualified. He should be removed. And I think he should be fairly prosecuted for so many high crimes and misdemeanors, including war crimes. And I think a fair trial would lead to his imprisonment. But I don't support the death penalty. I don't support any cruel or unusual punishment. And I think that we should have a society where people lose their physical freedom, right, because they've done terrible things like that. We actually try to create the conditions for them to have the deepest accountability. The deepest accountability is not to be hung or something like that. It's to actually confront what you did with your heart and then try to make amends for it. And then say, how can I spend my life? And there are people who committed horrible murders, that are in our prisons, who have then gone through a process of profound rehabilitation and transformation supported by people who helped them. And then had these meetings with the people, the survivors of the people that they killed, and helped to create healing for them, and then gone on to help all these other family members, right? So those stories tell us about the potential that's there. And I think if we have a movement that not only fiercely resists the injustice, but holds open a vision of how society of reconciliation and of a society in which we can really make it possible for the very best in people to be realized and be committed to that unfailingly. I think that's the most powerful, radical, and revolutionary, truly democratic, vision that we can hold. And I think it's the most powerful way to organize, because we see everyone as a potential supporter ultimately, and we want to try to bring them in. And the other thing about it, right, is that so much of, like I said, our conventional political culture, it's so deeply corrupt in many ways. And we see this from journalists, right, who have information of tremendous public importance, right? But they'll hold on to it for a book they're going to publish in a couple of years, just because that's what you do. That's what you do. That's because you can make maybe a couple $1,000,000 off that book. That's just how we roll, right? And members of Congress that are like, hey, it's just what you do. You get a job as a lobbyist afterwards because you can get paid. Everybody's trying to get paid. And Obama goes on Richard Branson's yacht after, because it's just what you do if you're famous, right? No, it doesn't have to be. Dr. King could have been rich. He could have been very rich, right? He could have made a lot of money off his books and his speeches and all that. But he refused that because he knew he had to have integrity for the movement. And he was paid 1 penny a year by Southern Christian Leadership Conference because they insisted on paying him, and he gave almost all the money from the books and speeches to the movement. And so to me, that's the ethic of servant leadership that should be guiding us in the movement and in our politics, and it's rooted in the nonviolent culture in that same tradition. And so I'm just a humble fellow traveler, but I'm going to try to be faithful to that the best I can.
Thank you so much. And staff members, Robert Scheer's in the waiting room if we can let him into the call.
Hi.
You've
been endorsed by PDA, both nationally and locally. What can we as an organization, as individuals, do to help your campaign, get you over the top?
Absolutely. I want to answer that, but first I want to say one thing, right? There's a lot of races around the country that are really important, a lot of great progressive challengers. I think one thing that it makes this race really significant for people wherever you are in the country, whether you're in Arizona or in the district or not, is that if we win and if I win, it will be, to my knowledge, the first time that a very strong, entrenched establishment incumbent, right? Someone like Stanton was the mayor of Phoenix, right? Was defeated, and where someone who was all in with AIPAC lost their job because they were challenged by someone who defended human rights and Palestinian freedom and had opposed the genocide, right? And if that happens, it's going to, not just for that reason, but I think that one's really critical to send shockwaves throughout the Democratic Party nationally, and I think accelerate this shift from that corruption and this disastrous policy of unconditional blank check support for the Israeli government, no matter what they do, towards a policy of human rights, international law, democracy. But we're only going to be able to win this. We only have a chance if we can build a powerful grassroots movement like Zohran Mamdani did in New York City. We're going to need hundreds and hundreds of people that are volunteering, and many around the country that are joining to make calls, to do texts, to be social media warriors, to donate. He's got a lot of money in the bank, and we need to raise several $1 million to be competitive. And it's only going to happen if we can build something historic on the ground in the district, but also if it becomes one of the races that progressives take up around the country and say, this is a chance, right, where we can really move the needle forward in the whole Democratic Party nationwide. So if you share these values and this vision, then I would ask you to join and be part of our campaign. We got places to stay if you want to come knock doors, all the way up to the highest level of engagement. We need it. That's the only way we're going to do this, if we can have that same kind of movement spirit that we had in Democracy Spring, marching from the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia all the way to DC and people sitting in day after day, spirit they had in the Birmingham campaign, spirit they had on the farm worker pilgrimage. That's the kind of spirit that we need. It's the only path we have. But I think if we do build that, we can do something that will be a historic victory, not only shifting the politics in Arizona, but nationwide within the Democratic Party. And then I'll do everything I can to bring this same nonviolent movement tradition to carry that forward from the position of being a member of Congress. And we've seen some cool things happen, like John Lewis led the sit-in on the House floor around gun violence prevention, but I think there's so much more that's possible there if we have some leaders that can experiment with it, continuing, as Gandhi said, experiments with truth. So that's what you can do, pitch in, donate whatever you can, join us as a volunteer, make calls, text, through social media, come to Arizona. We'd love to have you. As I say, it's a movement of love, truth, and people power, and I believe we can win if many folks in the state and around the country who share the vision join us.
We're going to have about 5 minutes for quick Q&A. I just want to say two things. Everybody, please do what you can to maybe donate some money, sign up to volunteer for Kai's campaign, sign up to volunteer with PDA to make calls for Kai's campaign. But there will be a link where there'll be a split for money between PDA, because we'll be, of course, using resources to support his campaign, and also we'll go to Kai's campaign directly. Now, I do want to just add this too about what you said about nonviolent civil disobedience and love and everything. I really actually think that's the great rejoinder to all this emphasis on AI and the building of greater quote unquote intelligence. Well, yes, they may be able to compute very rapidly, but they have no human heart and no human soul, and they don't love. And it's like this whole group of people driven by the idea that making money is the most important thing in society are creating things that may actually be the instruments of our own destruction as a species. And I think having a voice like yours in Congress will be essential even on that front. And it will resonate with millions upon millions of people, some of whom aren't progressive too, folks. So, by the way, Narda Zarkino is the name Narda, Narda, that Robert Scheer is here with us. So please make Narda a co-host. So, folks, we can take a few questions for Kai. We've got about 5 minutes here. If people have questions, maybe from staff. It looks like Timothy Michelle is the first person to get there. Then Jim, the great Jim Langford. Timothy, please unmute. And a question for Kai Newkirk, candidate in Arizona's what district is it again? What number is it, Kai?
Number 4.
Number 4. Taking on incumbent. Timothy, take it away. Your question.
Great, Kai. The first thing I want to say is China is building fusion power plants to break their dependency on oil. I'm not sure how you see our way off of oil, but that is a very, very good way to do it. In the interim, it allows us to build all the solar panels and everything we need without having to burn all that oil to make those solar panels. So that's my one question. How do you see us and how do you see us conducting foreign policy in a way that enhances and supports life globally?
Thank you, Tim. I couldn't hear a little bit at the beginning of your question, so I might not get everything right. But I didn't speak much about climate, but it's deep and central concern of mine. I've been organizing around that for a long time, as well as the broader ecological crisis. I support a Green New Deal in the broader sense of just a massive federal, ultimately international, but in terms of the U.S. federal mobilization of public resources to create the most rapid physically possible transition towards a clean energy economy, and to one that is actually drawing down carbon, right? Creating millions of jobs in the process, right? And creating stronger communities and transforming everything from agriculture to transportation and electricity generation. And I think there's tremendous potential also in intersection with the affordability crisis, cost of living crisis. That is core to what we're trying to confront as a party, as a nation, and certainly in my campaign. In Australia now, they're producing so much solar power that electricity is free between noon and 3 because they want to incentivize people to use it during the peak hours for sunlight. In Arizona, certainly we are competitive with Australia in terms of their solar potential. So and around the country, right? So to me, our mantra is like free solar energy, right? If we're actually building out the infrastructure and doing what we need to maximize that in the places where we have it and being able to move it around the country through a smart grid, then I think that we can not only, right, restore a safe climate for all of life and future generations, right, and have clean air, right, and have so many fewer people die or get sick because of that particulate pollution, but also just make life much more affordable for working class people. So to me, that's core. And in terms of foreign policy, as I said, I think we need a shift to put international law, collective security, and democracy and human rights at the center of what we do. And really, I mean, the United Nations was founded in the U.S. It's headquartered in New York, right? That vision of extending the principles of democracy to international relations has been there as a seed, from the founding, right? And so we need to renew that and really carry that forward and be a leading force in trying to bring nations of the world together to build that kind of infrastructure. And it has to be principled. And so, when we can't, there's so many nations that haven't tried to hold Russia accountable for what I see as aggression in Ukraine, despite, expansion of NATO and those questions, I think is still illegal and unjustified. But they didn't join in because they feel like it's hypocrisy, right? And what we've done in terms of supporting the war crimes and genocide in Gaza has only deepened that. So if we want to build that kind of, get buy-in from nations around the world for that cooperation, it has to be with integrity and principled and consistent. I hope that gets to what you asked about there, Tim. Thank you. And I'm sorry.
Jim Langford.
Questions.
Jim Langford, go for
it. Yeah, Alan. Donna had unmuted and had her video on, and if we're pressed for time, I'd rather yield my time to her.
No, please, we'll go do you and then Donna, and then I think they were going to have people.
All right. I wasn't sure how much time Kai had. Kai, I'm Jim Langford. I'm based out of Florida. I work with Mike Fox down here in PDA, Florida, and I've got two questions for you, real quick. Are you and the incumbent the only two candidates in your race, and when is your primary?
Yeah, real basics I didn't hit there. Yes, we are the only two. There were some other Democrats running, but they dropped out and endorsed me once I announced, or they didn't get the signatures. So that's been really great. So it's not going to be a situation as we've seen at some of these other places where progressives are splitting the vote. And the primary, the last day to vote, election day, is July 21st. But mail ballots go out on June 24th. So it's a real sprint, but we've got time to build up the kind of campaign that we need.
Well, that was it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And Donna, I suppose you'll have the final question for Kai, and then everybody else on Stack. If you want to write Kai, you can do that through PDA or write him through his campaign. And if you want to write Kai through PDA, just at info@pdamerica.org. You can also CC me, Alan, ALAN, at pdamerica.org. Donna Smith, final question.
This will be very quick, I think, Kai, but I'd like to know, there's been a lot of talk this week about lessons that the people of the United States could take from the people of Hungary. What do you think? Do you think we need to take some lessons from the people of Hungary? And if so, what?
Absolutely. I haven't learned a lot about the details of their organizing there, but I think there's some that come to mind. One is that we need an integrated strategy. We need mass nonviolent protests. We need mass non-cooperation. And we need to vote and defend and organize to defend the results of the vote. And we need to do all that together and build the broadest anti-fascist coalition possible. It has to be built from the progressive base, but we have to welcome in anyone who agrees on defending the basic structure of democracy, right? And in that case, bringing down Orban. And so I think that as progressives, that can be challenging because we're fighting so much to try to set stronger moral lines. But we have to understand the difference between like a primary, in my case, where we can prosecute those lines, with great intensity, and a situation, like a presidential election when we want to have a candidate that's really aligned with us, but they have to be able to reach out and try to bring everyone together. Like Zoran Mamdani said, it was a quote, I think, from Ed Koch that, you agree with me on 9 out of 12 things, let's work together. 12 out of 12, see a psychiatrist. And he would joke that some people would come up on the street and be like, 12 out of 12, baby, send me away. And we're going to have those people, right? But that can't be the ticket into the coalition, right? It can't be the ticket into the coalition. We're going to have some disagreements. There's diversity of thought and everything, but we got to come together. And I think the last thing is just the determination and the hope and sticking with it, right? And not giving into despair, because they lived under him for years and it was getting worse and worse. Thankfully, I don't think that's going to happen here. I think that we're set up well to really succeed strongly in this midterms and then to bring Trump down and win in 2028. But it's been a rough road, going back to 2016, right? And so that being unwilling to let them win by crushing our hope, right? And coming back to that deep, in my view, hope is a fundamental condition of being alive. As long as you're alive, the future is always fundamentally uncertain. And so if you're alive and you can choose to act and you can choose to act out of love, right? And the way you want to live and the way you want to be, even if we only have one more day, then there's hope in that. And so they showed us something there, and that's the spirit that we need to have in our struggle.
Newkirk,
thank you.
We are honored to have you on our town hall today, and I think we will have you back before primary day if that's all right with you, at least one more time. And man, I am so inspired by you. Actually, I want to go and walk precincts in Arizona in the summer. I mean, how crazy is that, man? So anyway, thank you so much, and we're going to be jumping over to Bob Scheer in a second. Thank you so much, Kai Newkirk, and please donate to his campaign. Yeah, the link is in the chat. And then Mike Fox, we're gonna let's bring forward Bob Scheer and let's explain to him the run of show here for a second. So, Bob,
Ellen, can I interrupt for just a second? Dan O'Neill got dropped off, and he's back in the room, but he needs to be made a co-host again. If Mike Fox can do that.
Great, thank you.
Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you, and thank you, Kai, and everybody. Please donate to Kai's campaign. Sign up to support Kai's campaign. Sign up to be a volunteer at KPFK to support Kai's campaign. Obviously, one of our priority congressional races in 2026. Have a great progressive champion represent Central Phoenix metropolitan area. Thank you so much, Kai.
Thank you all. Thank you, everybody. Great to be with you all.
Yep. Thank you so much. And Robert Scheer, as I believe, did we lose Bob as he was on here as a co-host, correct?
Yep.
And yes, here he is. Please unmute Bob Scheer and put on your video if you can too. We'd love to see you. And Bob, are you able to unmute? There you are. I can see. You should be able to talk. Bob? Hello, Bob. Bob, can you hear me? We can hear you, Bob, but you can't hear us, it sounds like. And are you able to put your video on, Bob? I tell you what, guys, Mike, why don't you take it away with our PDA to-dos? I'm going to mute myself and to turn my video off, and I'll call Bob by phone, okay?
Okay, no worries. The wonderful world of technology, we shall overcome. There is no question. Actually, this brings up somebody trying to get in there.
I was going to say, can I take another question while we're waiting?
That's curveball, Kai. Love you. My answer is hold that thought. Okay, let's get to, I want to get to the thank yous. Show, like you were saying, show a little bit of love. And of course, people are going to start raising their hands. Okay, so I want to thank everybody who has donated today so far. The following folks have. We got Margaret and Samuel and Marie and phone banker Mary Ellen. Double doing like nobody's business. Phone banker Peggy. Wow, that's huge, Peggy. Thank you so much for your more than kind $250. You absolutely rock. Hey, anybody who can match or beat Peggy's donation, it would be a beautiful thing. I'm sure she would love you. She'd love to see that solidarity. And phone banker Bo up in Philly, and Joanne, and Dr. Deutsch, phone banker Dr. Deutsch, double doing, and Valerie, Anthony, phone banker Jane, thank you, sister. And Darwin, thank you for your more than kind $100. And Michael, who's with us every single week up in Chicago, thank you, brother. And Charles and John and Janet, Catherine out in Arizona, and phone banker Erica double doing, and phone banker Michael double doing, and phone banker Michael out in California double doing, and there's Dr. Deutsch again, and phone banker Beverly, phone banker Carol, phone banker and West Virginia chapter head, absolutely crushing it. Thank you, Carol. And phone banker David, and Robbie is our sustainer for the day. We're still way short on sustainers, gang, so get ready to hit that link. And Christine, Michael, phone banker Michael, and again, phone banker Mary Ellen, and phone banker Betsy, and again, phone banker Mary, Merry, out in Colorado, and Mark and Neil, Bob out in Colorado, or out in Missouri. Dorothy, as always, thank you for your $100, sister. You are an inspiration. And Michael Shapiro again, he donated twice. So thank you to all the folks who have donated. Thanks to everybody who has volunteered as well. Now, we're still short on goals, but we're moving in the right direction. So I see that Susan has tossed into the chat the volunteer link and the donate link. If you do not see those, just go to pdamerica.org, click on donate, click on volunteer. Let's make something happen. So, Alan, are we in a position to get to Robert, or we can get back to Kai for a question of some sort? What do you think, Alan? Alan going once. Alan going twice. All right, let's open it up for one question for Kai. You want to take one now, Kai?
Yes. Yes,
Sweet.
happy to.
All right. Actually, I'll cover just a second here with this is just a love fest moment right here. Okay. Gang, I started my electoral political career as a campaign manager for a candidate who didn't have anything like what Kai brings to the table from a history standpoint. She's a good gal, right? She's just a really wonderful person. And so our habitual phrase, yeah, our slogan, that's the word. Slogan in our campaign was, well, we wanted the adults to do something, but since nobody did, we stood up. And we ended up getting absolutely crushed, right? That's not a precursor to Kai. This guy's got the ability to win this thing. But here's the point. We became the first campaign in the history of Pinellas County to get a candidate onto the ballot via petition. In Florida, you can totally forego the petition process and just drop a $10,000 check. Well, we did that. We got 4,089 of them. I take great pride in that. And the guy who did that says, what you guys did in that petition drive was freaking awesome. Awesome. Everybody needs to recognize that. That's real ground game there, gang.
Hey,
yep.
There you are.
So,
Yep. Hey, Mike Fox, can you let Robert in as the co-host?
Ellen, he's not in the waiting room.
Hello?
There's no one in our waiting room, Alan.
I saw his name come up.
Yeah, Robert Scheer. Well, if you could make him a co-host, Mike.
Can you hear me all right?
I can, but we'll hear you in a second on the call.
Seems blocked. Is it?
There he is. 1 second. Here it comes. Here it comes. Get ready.
What I have to do?
1 second. Just 1 second.
Boink. He should now be able to unmute and et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, you should be able to unmute and we should be able to hear you. And please turn your camera on too if you can, Bob.
How do I unmute?
How does he have you don't see an unmute? You click your audio on. Okay, Bob is in as a co-host, right? Get everybody?
I know.
Yeah.
I can say unmute. Wait a minute.
I just said unmute. Can you hear me?
There we go. We can hear. There we go. Okay, Bob. Can you hear us? Bob? Bob, we can hear you.
No, now I can't hear you, Alan.
Mike Fox, can you hear me?
Yes.
You need to Bob Scheer, you have to turn your audio volume up. Okay, I'll call him back.
All right, so we'll go back to Kai. Anybody have a question for Kai?
Hello?
Raise your hand. Oh, there's Bob.
Bob, can you hear us? No, he still can't hear us.
Don't know, it's on his end. All right. Mila has her hand up. Tim, if you can let some other folks raise their hand. We've heard from you already, brother. And Mila, boom. You should be able to unmute, Mila.
I am unmuted. Thank you. And good to see you, Kaya. I'm so sorry to hear about your family problems right now. When we talk about Tim Carpenter, I think it's really important to remember how one of his core positions was to fight nuclear power. And unfortunately, that seems to be left out of a lot of remembrances about him. But I was actually just sending you an email because I have owed it to you since last August when I asked you about the Palo Verde nuclear power plant in Arizona. At that time, you said that you weren't particularly, that was on a GREEP call, and you said that you weren't really familiar because you hadn't been back in Arizona all that long. So I'm going to send you an email with an article that I wrote about Palo Verde, which is based on years of research. And perhaps that will help for you to gain an understanding of, I believe, the need to shut it down. And let me just say that in 2018, the operator of the Palo Verde nuclear power plant spent millions of dollars of ratepayer money to defeat a project that would have solarized or mandated solar energy for.
Hello.
Okay, just
and Robert Scheer is talking, so I'm going to say goodbye.
Hello.
Thank you for your help, Mila. Robert,
Hello.
do you hear us?
Hello.
Robert, do you hear us? We may be cursed
Hello.
here. Well, thanks everybody for your patience. The wonderful world of technology. Robert going once.
Bob Scheer, are you with us?
Alan, hello.
Hello, you can hear us.
Nah, he can't hear us.
Bob, can you hear us? Okay, boy. What's going on? He doesn't have his volume on his phone, I suppose.
Yeah, on his phone or something.
His computer, yeah. Okay.
All right, let's get to Dr. Deutsch, who's one of our strongest supporters out of Pennsylvania, phone banker, donor, et cetera, double doer constantly. Dr. Deutsch, what you got?
It has some
Alan,
specifics.
hello.
It has some specifics
Hello.
about fusion power. And one of them is that
Hello.
if you do make that go, you may have
Hello.
to cut the
Hello.
reactor
Yeah,
up
I can hear you on my phone. Yes.
every several decades and bury the remains of the reactor because it has some short-term radioactivity, and also it matters whether you use hydrogen or helium-3. Helium-3 requires a much higher input of energy than hydrogen, so that also has drawbacks that become apparent over time. That's the end of my remarks.
All good, brother. And as folks can probably tell, we have a PhD in that area. And any response to that, Kai?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Mila. And where'd he
Dr.
go?
Deutsch.
Dr. Deutsch. Yeah, I think probably a lot of Tim's arrests came from the anti-nuclear movement, and I learned from a lot of people that were part of that back when I was a student. People like Starhawk and Lisa Fithian, and George Lakey, and so on. And I think that was an important struggle, and also victorious in ways that don't get talked about. And in my view, what I would say at this point is that if it required or requires maintaining nuclear power plants in some places around the world or in the U.S. or in some building others in order to restore a safe climate, then I think that has to be done. But I don't think that is necessary. I think if we actually do maximize the potential in terms of solar, wind, hydro, and what's possible in terms of new forms of energy, which my understanding is that fusion is what we're trying to develop, and we have some new potentials with, and fission is what we've been working with for decades, and that creates some real challenges. I don't think it is necessary to maintain and to continue to build out the traditional nuclear power infrastructure if we are really doing what we can with solar especially, but other clean forms as well. But I think that we just got the news that the Atlantic meridional circulating current, I forget, it's called the AMAC. What does the O stand for? But it's the current, right, that moves warm and cold water right up through the Atlantic Ocean, that it's much more at risk of shutting down now than we thought. And if that were to happen, right, there would be just catastrophic impacts in the much of the world that is the continents around the Atlantic Ocean. And so I think we're in a situation where we have to triage in some way, right? Where we have to prevent these worst impacts. And so that has to guide us. But I think if we do things right, if we build a Green New Deal, not just in the US, but around the world, and we really invest the money that's being sucked up into the billionaire class to try to create the first trillionaires or spent on war, on this transition, that we can do it and do it with solar, wind, hydro, and new forms. So that's my answer there.
Thank you, Kai. You rock. Alan, are we getting close to Robert? Do we want to continue on to Tyler? Hearing nothing, we will head on to Tyler. Boom, phone banker Tyler. Out of, I forget, Tyler, where are you from? You in Massachusetts
I'm
or
from
Maryland?
Massachusetts, southeastern Massachusetts.
Yeah. What you got, brother?
My question for Kyle deals with the Iran war. How do you feel about this new war in the Persian Gulf?
I think it's a criminal war. I think it's illegal. I think that the oppression that the Iranian government carries out against its people, or war crimes that may have been part of around the region, do not justify that kind of aggression. I think it's been a disaster. I think that Trump should be impeached and removed and prosecuted for those war crimes, in addition to others like Hegseth. To me, it's such a sign of just the degradation of our kind of moral order that you could have a school of young girls be bombed and 150 some precious souls wiped out horrifically, and that the whole world wouldn't pause and just say, for something so horrific to happen, whatever else was going on, whatever.
You're good. You're good, Kai. That was for the question. Go ahead, brother.
No worries. To say everything has to stop, and everyone who's responsible for such a state of affairs, has to be held accountable. I think it's awful, and it's also part of a bigger problem in terms of the just assault on basic constitutional and democratic order, both nationally and internationally, that Trump has been carrying out. Just extrajudicial murders, assassinations of people, that are allegedly smuggling drugs in the Caribbean, to threatening to take over Greenland by force, just going in and killing people and abducting, Maduro from Venezuela, regardless of, his status as an authoritarian. That's not how things can be done. It's unacceptable. And also, we know it's part of the broader problem in terms of our disastrous policy in relation to Israel and the policy of impunity for the extremist leadership in the government there that we know pushed us to get involved in Iran, and all the people who have died there and in Lebanon since, in addition to the American soldiers who've been killed or injured. It's terrible. And I think we've got to hold Trump accountable. And the Democrats who haven't been willing to really stand up and fight against that, we've got to hold them accountable as well. Like our incumbent Stanton said, we need an explanation. He did vote for the War Powers Resolution recently, when almost everybody understood you got to do that or you're going to get run out of office. But wasn't pushing back and making it clear that this was both wrong and illegal and it had to be stopped. We didn't need an explanation. And the procedural constitutional issue is important. But if that was addressed, it would still be wrong to do, because it is illegal under international law and constitutes aggression, and it's been incredibly destructive, including economically, to people in our country.
Amen, brother. Alan, do we have Robert tight yet? Alan going once. Alan going twice. All right, we'll head up to Carly, one of our very active folks with our disabilities issue organizing team. And speaking of which, let me get you unmuted, Carly. We need to tell us, we normally don't want to fragment people's attention. We're talking to Kai right now, but if Susan, you can drop in that notice for the disabilities issue organizing team call this upcoming Wednesday, so that, bam, that's what I'm talking about. Thank you, Susan. Carly, what you got, sister?
Carly, going once. Okay. I'm Okay, I just wanted to.
You're breaking up, Carly. Now you're muted
She's
again.
muted.
Yep. Boom. You should be. There you go, Carly. You're unmuted.
I wanted to ask.
You're good.
I wanted to ask, how are you going to address the ableism on the left side of things? Because my friend Heath Howard, who is running to fill Chris Pappas' spot in the U.S. House of Representatives, he had the R word dropped right to his face the other day, and it really upset him. And I hate to say it, but ableist jokes on anybody, even Trump, is crossing the line. So if you're elected, how are you going to get the ableism out of the recipe of the American pie, so to speak?
Thank you, Carly. I'm sorry to hear about that happening. I think first and foremost, not participating in it, right? And just showing the basic respect and honoring the dignity of all people, including folks that are disabled. And working together in a spirit.
All good.
And I think,
there's a way we can kill that, Mike Fowler, when a person stops asking a question. That'd be wonderful. Go ahead, go ahead, Guy.
It's like the Oscars. It's like you're getting run off.
Yeah. I mean, it's effective, but it's kind of confusing when it goes off when you're in the middle of your answer. Go ahead, brother. I apologize.
So I think we got to defend the policy victories. The Americans with Disabilities Act, I think is not celebrated enough as a really landmark victory for justice and building a more democratic society. We've got to protect that. And obviously, under Trump, we've just seen he's had his uniquely wounded and distorted personality, has helped shift our politics. Obviously, social media, a bunch of other things have created more of this coarsening and rewarding of extremity, but just sort of like this rhetoric of just like, I don't know what the right word is, but demeaning, right? Just demeaning the basic humanity and dignity of people, including in any kind of way they might be vulnerable, including towards disabled people. We've got to recover, our basic capacity, right, to try to create a discourse that builds a stronger society rather than tearing it down, right, for a short-term political gain, right? And so I think Trump has been a uniquely destructive force there, but we all participated in different ways. That's the truth. We all participated in different ways. I feel this in my own, organizing, right? There's a pressure on social media and rhetorically, right, to sort of like touch those easiest kind of buttons, right, of our more primitive impulses, right? Because it's going to give us some good energy, right? When the truth is more complex, and when it may be more challenging to take an approach that tries to protect everyone's dignity and humanity. So, but I think we got to hold people accountable in positions of power when they do, egregious things in that. But we've also got to love each other and support each other to understand these are tough circumstances. We're organizing in an emergency. There's lots of fear and anger. It's all natural. We've got to help each other to try to rise to a higher level of wisdom in how we organize. I hope that's helpful.
Alan, what you got?
I think we're going to have Bob Scheer back another time. He apologizes to everybody. He was at the LA Times Festival of Books, and he still teaches at 90 years old. He still teaches at USC. Marvelous class. And so he went to his office with his iPad, and he could not figure out how to turn the volume on. So he was watching me speak and watch and saw your name when you were speaking, Mike, but he couldn't hear the audio, and therefore he couldn't get to where we could ask him questions. He does Zoom calls all the time at his home computer back in his apartment.
Well, there you go. There's the answer.
So hey, look, Bob's an incredible legend and really a great voice. He loved the idea of maybe having a moment with Kai too, as I told him about it, but that wasn't going to happen at the top because it just wasn't working out, and it didn't happen 20 minutes in. So thank you so much, Kai, and keep going. I love as long as you're willing to take questions, you're the man of the hour, man.
It's making me feel better just to hang out with my PDA family. So I'll soak it.
Well, you're giving me a lot of hope. you're giving me a lot of hope, man. So I love it. So thank you. And well, shall we go to John? John and John Stufko with the next question. Please unmute, John.
Well, my question would be, because Kai talked about impeachment, I think we should go with Article 2, Section 4, which means the whole White House should be removed. The whole Trump White House should be removed. You mentioned about impeachment or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty justified. What's the process on that, and distinct from impeachment? Is it still just Congress? It's still basically the same, but it's not just for the president?
And of course, he's now been muted. We thought that he was done talking. So hold on a second. John Sofko, let's see. All right. It's so much easier to talk with each other in a room.
Okay. Yeah, and I think I can't remember if that power to eliminate the entire administration is in the Constitution the way that John implied. I don't think it is.
I should know this. Yeah, as a power that could potentially be exercised depending on the details there in Congress. But so depending on those details, I think it's justified. But we would also have to think about it strategically, right? So maybe there's like, I don't know. I'm thinking through the cabinet, like of somebody who's been relatively innocuous or something like that. Do we want to undermine our ability to take out Trump, by sort of having to make the case, for all these people? So I think it would have to be, there'd have to be a strategic calculation there that's made. But right now, even though we don't have the votes, it's important to tell the truth and organize the American people around the fact that Trump, he has just shattered. I mean, it blows my mind the level of corruption. Even if you just look at just sort of like self-dealing, and kind of corruption to get wealth out of the presidency and look away from the violent and lethal ways, right? It's just, it's beyond the pale. And if we just sort of throw up our hands and say, well, this is just what's happening, we can't stop him, rather than just telling the truth and saying, no, these are extreme and egregious violations, high crimes and misdemeanors, and he should be held accountable, should be impeached, removed, and prosecuted, then we just give more and more space for him to go further with that, rather than organizing the American people. And unless we have all Democrats on board, how are we going to get the Republicans to join us, right? Which we ultimately need to do, especially in the Senate. I think the markets now have us like 51% was the last I saw for Democrats to win the Senate and the House, which is amazing, right? We've got this potential to really turn things around. But I don't think we're getting to 67, folks. I don't think we're getting to 67.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we're gonna need Democratic unity, right? That then can peel off a bunch of Republicans to say, to try to recover some of their dignity in the history books for how they led or or failed to lead in this era.
Of course, the notion of Peter Thiel. Oh, sorry, I meant J.D. Vance being a president is a very tricky thing. Maybe not for the sort of like money going directly into Vance's pocket the way that Trump is doing, but for destroying the structures of the democracy are pretty threatening. But Hakeem Jeffries then you would have a Democrat in line, of course. So I don't think the removal of a whole administration, I don't think is possible, because that would not make sense in terms of the operation of the government. It would leave a void in terms of the operations of the executive branch for a while. But John Stolfko, just if you can clarify what you're asking about, please unmute. But then we're going to go to Jim Langford in a second.
I know it's in the U.S. Constitution, Article 2, Section 4, where it states that all officials, including the president, vice president, can be removed from the White House immediately.
No, but that's an independent one-by-one basis. It's not the whole administration. It has to be an independent one-by-one. So yes, Supreme Court judges can. Any I think executive in the executive branch, and we see this. People are calling for impeachment proceedings. They were calling for Pam Bondi. They were calling it for other members of this administration. Yeah. But the wholesale removal of an administration is not on the cards.
Yeah. Yes. So it's just an extension of the impeachment power. Then I would say we should look at what do we think would be most important and most achievable, right? To really cut off the most extreme danger in terms of authoritarian seizure of power. And I think that, like, I wasn't alive then, but it seems like Gerald Ford was quite chased, right? By Nixon's impeachment, right? And really tried to back off and protect himself at that point. So I think there's dynamics like that that would have to be considered. But the key thing is that we need Democrats that are actually going to fight on principle, be bold, take risks, make sacrifices, to use every tool that we have to try to win. And there are some that have been doing that. I'm proud of Adelita Grijalva. She was pepper sprayed or, hit with pepper balls like I was in the street, standing up against what ICE is doing here in Arizona. But I think Stanton has not been doing that, and there's a bunch of others around the country that haven't been. And if they're not going to, they need to give up the seat to somebody who will.
And let me tell you, when the DNC and William Walter, who's not with us because he had to go to that event with Gwen Moore, but he could tell you when we ran into her at the DNC, she was wearing a big "Block the Bombs" T-shirt. So Delia will be our guest next week on this town hall. So there you go. And it'd be fantastic to have Delia working with Kai in the U.S. Congress. Jim Langford, please unmute.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Alan. And Kai, I want to take the conversation maybe in a slightly different direction, but down here in Florida, our legislature will be meeting not next week, but the following week to discuss redistricting at the behest of Trump, and we have his fascist leader here in DeSantis as our governor. And they're going to be trying to redistrict and basically gerrymander, I believe, 3 or 4 of our Democratic districts. We don't have very many left. My question is, according to what I've been told, DeSantis had postponed it from next week to the following week because he's waiting on the Supreme Court to make a ruling on the Voting Rights Act. And if they, he's hoping that basically if they throw the entire Voting Rights Act, that they'll be able to redistrict without having to take any kind of minority, basically districts into consideration. So what I was wanting to find out is if you have a feel with all of your work that you've done in the civil rights movement, do you have a feel right now for what the Supreme Court will do regarding the Voting Rights Act? Have you been paying any attention to that at all?
Some, but I wouldn't say I feel like I've got a really good sense about that right now. I mean, I think the Roberts Court, going back, right, seeing what they've done on voting rights and money in politics, it's been awful. So I think we have to be prepared for them to continue to gut things, which has just been so destructive. But it seems like they also are having a sense of how their sort of historic standing and the credibility of the institution is in a very tenuous place, given how much they've allowed Trump to carry out these abuses, and are trying to find ways to try to, shore that up. So it seems uncertain. But I think we've got to be prepared as the people, right, at the backstop with nonviolent civil resistance to push back, and to organize and use all the tools from civil disobedience to non-cooperation to elections in the short term, and then winning big in the midterms to push back. So that's what I would say. And like we've seen in some places, right, where some states we've been able to pass referendums, right, or initiatives, right, we can take it directly to the people to try to
We've
win
already
things
done that in Florida. In 2010, we passed the Fair Districts Amendment by almost 70% in the state as an amendment to the Constitution. And so basically, it's already illegal to gerrymander in the state, but they are just totally just disregarding that. The Florida Supreme Court is stacked with DeSantis appointees, and they will basically let him do whatever he wants. So even though we have that Fair Districts Amendment, there are several civil rights activist type groups and the ACLU too, I think, that are trying to keep saying this is not legal, you can't do this, but they're moving forward with it anyway. And so consequently, what's likely to happen is that they will go ahead and pass the gerrymandered districts. We'll have to go through an election cycle, and then court proceedings take a while, and that would be after the election at some point in the future, even if it gets overturned. So it's really it's kind of a panicky situation, because we have a couple of very good Democratic House members here in Florida And it's not the majority, but we do have a few, and it is kind of a scary type of situation. And so I just thought I'd ask if you had any insight there. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Keep fighting though. Keep fighting, right? Around when we defeated Trump's effort to repeal Obamacare in 2017, right? We had to start really building the urgency among Democrats, organizing protests, civil disobedience around the country. Got Bernie involved, right? Got all the Democrats on board, which you didn't take for granted. And then we started peeling Republicans, and then ultimately, right, McCain came in and did that dramatic final vote with the thumbs down, right?
Right.
But the hero was everybody who was in that, right? So Republicans, they can be peeled off, and we can win these defections when we organize, like happened around the Epstein files, right? All these Republicans peeled off Trump, and he had to give up. So don't give up. Keep organizing, keep fighting, and maybe some Republicans in Florida, right, would defect from the plan and try to shut it down. And if not,
we're hoping. For one thing, they think they might water down the Republican districts enough that with the wave that seems to be going in the direction it's going, that it's possible that it would actually backfire on them. And a few Republicans are concerned about that. I'm not sure if it's enough yet to actually make a difference, but we'll see. I appreciate your answer. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. And there could be a backlash after the election too, if they do get it through, right? That could help.
Alberto Saveda, please unmute.
Kai, great to see you here. It was an honor to participate with you in the March to Sacramento that you organized to protest Citizens United.
Yes.
Your leadership style can help us with the emergencies we face now and with the long-term goals that we all have. So any idea about Citizens United?
Yes, great to be with you, Al. You are awesome. You helped chart our route over the San Gabriel Mountains. I love you, brother. Yes, I'll always continue in that fight, right? What I've been trying to do with the People's Primary, People's Pledge is in that same spirit. I'm going to challenge Santa to take the People's Pledge. I'm going to talk with, damn it, I was supposed to send him some times for today, Lawrence Lessig. Maybe he's still available, but about trying to develop the strongest possible, I want to try to set a new standard with this campaign in terms of an anti-corruption policy agenda, right? And I think at this point, we've talked about overturning Citizens United. Obviously, Speech Now is another piece that Lessig is always trying to tell us that's what actually enabled super PACs. The constitutional amendment process is just so difficult. I mean, in terms of the way political polarization is in the states now or in Congress, I think we need to look at reform of the Supreme Court, or a strategy, right, that goes around that by passing federal legislation that has a strong mandate and forcing the court to either have to shut it down, right, or to let it pass by sort of making a new decision to correct their egregious errors in that. And then if they won't do that, or they continue to make decisions that just undermine the credibility so severely, like they did with Dobbs and overturning Roe versus Wade, then with the fact that justice is being appointed younger and younger, right, and living longer, that I think we need to do some reforms. I think the ones that Ro Khanna and others have put forward, like 18-year terms, and expanding the numbers. I forget exactly how many he was talking about, but I think those make sense. The court is at I think one of its weakest points in terms of its proper role in our democracy, and that needs to be shifted. And I think that could be a path. But I don't think we shouldn't wait on that reform to try to pass the federal legislation that is right and popular. I think by doing so and forcing the court to have to shut it down, and we kind of make it severable, so that some parts could survive a challenge, right, that we think are going to be easier, still get some benefit from passing the legislation. But we need to force that confrontation. That's part of what FDR did, right? He just kept trying to push stuff through, and created a political crisis around it. So right now, Democrats, like any Democrat, could say, "Oh, overturn Citizens United," and it doesn't commit them to anything because they know it's not going anywhere. There's no amendment going anywhere, right? And they can say that and still take corporate PAC money, still have billionaire super PACs come in, right, and not really fight for any legislation that we can get done. So I think we need people to put our money where our mouths are, walk the talk, right, in our campaigns within the party, and then have much more aggressive and assertive strategies legislatively and policy-wise to force that to create a political crisis there and force through reform and get through the Supreme Court one way or another.
Yeah, and also just we really have to build up great awareness among all registered Democrats that candidates who accept this money should not be elected.
Yeah, and they're not going to fight as hard for the reforms legislatively, right? If they're not willing to make some sacrifices under the current status quo that demonstrate their principled commitment. So I think that alignment is really key.
Richard Grimm, you're up next, and then Michelle will be the last person on stack. We're closing stack after Michelle. Richard, please unmute.
Sorry for the interruption, Alan. Everybody, stick around for family time. It's been like 25 minutes since we've generated any productivity out of this call. We got to bump up our numbers. Stick with us for family time. Go ahead, Richard.
Please unmute, Richard. There we go.
So, if the shutdown is so happening, would you keep the shutdown going on or not?
I'm sorry, you got to say that one more time for me. I didn't follow.
He asked if. Go ahead, Richard. I'm sorry.
If the shutdown is still happening, will you keep the shutdown going on, or do you keep the shutdown open?
In terms of the Department of Homeland Security?
Yes.
100%. I mean, we got to pay our TSA agents and the others and FEMA and so on that are doing work that needs to be done. But in my view, we need to disband or abolish ICE as an agency. We need to restructure Department of Homeland Security from the ground up and everything that has to do with immigration enforcement. The whole post 9/11 counter-terrorist approach has been a disaster. And reorganize that to put humanity at the center. So I would not give a dollar to those agencies under this current status quo, and I would support legislation to fundamentally reorganize and restructure that. So I'm all in for that, but I think we need to go further.
Thank you. And Michelle, final question for Kai Newkirk.
Yes, Kai. Back when I was a kid, Arizona was kind of synonymous with Senator Barry Goldwater and ultra-conservative. I was wondering if you can give us any specifics about what is unique about your district and the people there and what they might need as compared to the rest of the...
Thank you. Yeah, things have changed a lot since the Barry Goldwater days. I've been here since 2018. I came out with my now wife to be close with her family. And folks have organized, it's been the immigrant rights movement that played a critical role in moving the state from red to purple and now with the potential to go blue. So that fight, the immigrant rights struggle, obviously it's big nationwide, but it's big here and has been for a long time because of Sheriff Joe Arpaio and some of the local law enforcement. So that's a critical one that I think is really close to the heart for many people in our district. Also, water. Is a critical thing, not just here, right, but in the state. That I see that in the context of the climate crisis, and that if we have to take major measures around conservation and recycling of water in order to sustain, the large civilization that we have here in this desert valley. But if we're not addressing the climate crisis and really moving a massive Green New Deal and international treaties to create that shift as fast as possible, then it's like trying to bail water out of a boat that's flooding in the ocean, to get a really complex mixed water metaphor there. But so that's a critical one. Also, the AI fight in around data centers and electricity. Meta is trying to build a data center here in the district in Ahwatukee. I'm part of the effort to push back on that. I support locally and also federally, I support AOC and Bernie in terms of the call for a moratorium on AI data centers. I think that artificial intelligence, however we want to talk about it, describe it, I think it has tremendous potential benefits for society. If you look at medical research, for example, we're already seeing major acceleration in terms of research progress, but it has to be led and governed and structured in a way to benefit everybody and not just the billionaire class, and also to prevent these existential risks, right, of runaway development that aren't really guiding, don't have safeguards in to make sure that we maintain partnership or control, with this technology rather than it become independent and taking actions, right, that may go counter to human interests, and that the benefits, the impacts in society, right, are going to serve us all, which I think, like in Alaska, right, they have a policy, right, where the oil wealth of the state, they're just like, no, we're going to put this policy in and everybody gets a check. To me, whatever the benefits of AI are, including in terms of just direct wealth generation, that is like a collective fruit of generations of human cultural progress, right? And should serve all of us. So we should treat it in the same way. And so I think not only do we need that moratorium, but I think the legislation should direct the president and the executive branch to negotiate with China an international treaty. I mean, all the nations of the world, right? But China is the key, competitor in that race, to bring them together, similar to what we did with nuclear nonproliferation, other weapons of mass destruction, the Outer Space Treaty, and so on, to establish a governing framework, a regulatory framework for that technology as soon as possible. It seems remote, but I think it's actually like incredibly important. One of the most important things happening in our world right now, and we've got to get out in front and lead with some wisdom and the democratic spirit.
Well, thank you so much. And look, Kai, thank you so much for filling in. And I apologize to everyone about the problems we had with Bob Scheer, who's just a great guy and incredibly incisive and insightful fellow. But Kai, you have more than stepped up and provided an equal amount of insight into the world we live in, the society we live in, and really just a clear example of why we need people like yourself, you in particular, in the U.S. House of Representatives. And more people like you who are as sincere about being excellent public servants, are as knowledgeable about the issues that we all face in our society right now and the crises we face. And again, clearly in going an extra 50 minutes here with us because of the kerfuffle we had with getting Bob on the line, just how in-depth your knowledge is. So thank you so much, Kai. And everyone, please donate to Kai's campaign. Sign up to volunteer for Kai's campaign, and there are links in the chat where you can do a split donation to PDA and to Kai's campaign. And so, yes, and it's right there. Mike Fox's latest post in the chat. Right there. Please donate by clicking on that to Kai Newkirk's campaign for the U.S. House of Representatives and Congressional District 4 in the state of Arizona. And that'll be a split donation with PDA. So do that, folks. And thank you so much, Kai. And Dan O'Neill maybe has a final word. Dan?
Yeah, I just wanted to tell, there's 179 more people still on the call. And Kai has a calendar. The last I saw, if you go to his, I don't know where the link is. Maybe Kai, you can put it in there. But you don't have to be in Tempe, Arizona to support Kai. There's so much you can do from other places. So I really encourage every single person, all 177 now, to join this campaign and help us out. Yes, there you go. That's it. Get to work.
Thank you so much, Kai. Just a final thought as we close out this call, and then we're going to go to family time in just a minute or two. Your final thoughts, Kai.
Oh, family time, beautiful. I'm always. It's an honor to fill in some for Bob Scheer and to spend more time with y'all. Grateful for PDA. Grateful for everything that y'all do. Honored to be in the struggle together. And glad to spend this time with everybody. I hope that this campaign can be of service to our nation, to the world, however you want to be part of it, we need you. We can only do it with that powerful grassroots movement. And I think a victory can be a big step forward, not just for the state, but for the country and hopefully the world. So I love y'all. Grateful to be with you. Stay in the fight. Family time all day. See y'all soon.
See y'all soon. Thank you so much, Kai. Yeah, man, your campaign is much needed, and the central message of the campaign, and why you're stepping up to be a public servant at this hour is something that I think American society needs. And, let's not lose sight of the fact that, there's some absolutely brilliant things that have occurred throughout American history, not the least of which was the Thoreau Gandhi inspired civil rights movement from particularly 1955 to 1965, led by Martin Luther King, 1968, led by Martin Luther King Jr., the commitment to nonviolence, and forms organizations like PDA, which then goes out and drafts Bernie Sanders to run for president and supports, with our grassroots efforts, getting Kai Newkirk on the ballot in Arizona's 4th district. And it's a beautiful redemptive message that that is the foundation of Kai's campaign, and that's something that I think our society truly needs and will prosper when everyone becomes aware of Kai, when he wins this primary and is seated in Congress, and that is going to be a visionary voice in the U.S. Congress, folks. I truly believe that. I've never actually heard Kai, I've spoken to Kai many times. We have conversations, of course, but to speak to a large crowd like this, and in the depth that he did, the depth of his convictions and of his knowledge are really profound. So this is really one we have to get behind, and let's really shake things up and win this victory in Arizona's 4th. And thank you, Don O'Neill, for everything Arizona PDA is doing to support this campaign, and in the great tradition of Rahul Grijalva too. So yeah, and the great progressives in Arizona. Yeah, Dan, you're going to say. Oh, Dan, I thought you had a comment. No? And well, go ahead, Dan.
No, I'm done. As long as people are signing up for Kai, I'm done.
Yes, people sign up for Kai, and we're going to go now. I'm going to put a bow and ribbon on this. I got a PDA call in 18 minutes on another subject, and I'm going to hand off to Mike Fox for family time. Look, again, I apologize. This is all on me, and I should have maybe been aware it was going to be difficult for Bob with that LA Times Book Fest, but he swore at 2:00 he would be in his office, and that all sounded like it would be easy to work, but the iPad didn't work for him on this, and so I apologize. I want to thank Bob, though, for trying to show up. We all saw that he was trying there for a while. I want to thank everybody who stayed on the call throughout both hours, and everybody who showed up in time. Probably about 400 people, 450 people show up en masse, because so many people come in and out of these calls across this time. And of course, most of all, I want to thank Kai Newkirk, Donna Smith, William Walter, Jim Langford, Mike Fox, Mike Fowler, Susan Gilbert, everybody on the staff in the background doing the work here. But most of all, this Sunday, Kai Newkirk, for just filling in for Bob Scheer in the second hour and just doing such a brilliant job and inspiring us so much on this call today. And by the way, Susie Shannon is entering the waiting room. Hold on a second here. Susie, are you here?
Wait, can we?
Are we going to wrap here, brother?
On this or what?
Yeah, we're going to wrap. But Susie just came in, and I want to say next week I will be joining you from New York City, where I'll be at a housing conference with Susie Shannon. And we are going to wrap, though, and go to family time. So there it is. See everybody next week on PDA Town Hall.